Driven by a melody and pursued by a monster, will Hiroshi escape his fate in Kamen Rider ZO?
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
What'd you think, Alex?
I just feel calmed.
Welcome back to the Monsters vs. Men podcast, the bargain basement of the monster podcasting airwaves, where two friends try to stay alive and stay connected by chatting about weekly monster movies. This week, we're discussing Kamen Rider ZO as the first of our 4-part toku miniseries here to start off the new year, Alex. We've got Kamen Rider ZO, Kamen Rider J, Ultraman the Next, and Shin Ultraman. And I'm excited about all 4 of these. But it wasn't always this simple. At one point,
right,
we had considered doing Avatar.
Yes.
And I called it audible and switched to the films that were about a fourth of the length of each Avatar movie. Kamen Rider ZO and Kamen Rider J.
Yes, you did.
You still managed to watch both of those other films, though.
Just
somehow.
Yeah. I wasn't able to finish the first Avatar before I went and saw the new one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've just had a lot going on. So, I mean, I watched these Kamen Rider films in like 4 sittings each. So
4 sittings each?
Yeah, I had to watch them like in 10-minute chunks.
Oh my gosh, that is so weird for you, man.
Yeah.
For a 45-minute movie, you watched it in chunks?
Yeah, I know. I was laughing about it, actually, at work today because I was like sitting on my lunch break.
We totally switched places.
Yeah, we did. Except for mine was like even more egregious.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. Yeah, you can give me a hard time all you want about choosing Kamen Rider over Avatar, Alex, but we all know that the special effects that we're looking for falls under the Kamen Rider category.
I don't know. I mean, yes. The practical effects are definitely desirable, but when they're as good as Avatars, I don't know if you have a pretty good argument of what it can really bring. But that being said, there's some sets here that are just oozing personality that I absolutely love.
For sure. Well, let's jump into it then. Because the one thing I wouldn't want is an episode longer than the film itself. So, right. And we have to be careful with these because they're only 45 minutes. So let's jump in to Kamen Rider ZO.
All right.
Celebrating Kamen Rider's 40th anniversary in 2011, Kamen Rider ZO was released on pay-per-view in Japan and stands as a standalone Kamen Rider film with some loose connection to some other entities in the franchise. Knowing that you have more insight into the series as a whole, Alex, I want to ask you, does Kamen Rider ZO function as a solid footing for the franchise, or should new viewers look elsewhere for something more to Kamen Rider size?
Ooh, that's a tough question. First off, like, this film is guaranteed to give you ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
It's just everywhere. It's everything everywhere all at once. Until the final battle, not the movie. Because in the final battle, it feels like it becomes more cohesive, and then it just kind of stays on its final battle path. But as someone who has watched other Kamen Rider stuff, not much, but the original series, Kuga, a little bit, just a few random moments from the Reiwa stuff, it's clear that while this is a great one to show people for its effects, if you're wanting to get them into Kamen Rider, I don't know how great it is. Yes, Kamen Rider, especially Heisei and the Showa era, both of those are much more that are darker than like Ultraman. People die a lot. They get turned into like pools of blood. Lots of people get killed in these shows, and they are dark, but they're not quite like this. And the monster designs, like the spider, not quite. It's an even more over the top Kamen Rider design than what we would normally see. Now you might see that more in the Heisei era of Kamen Rider, where things got really cool. Just because I've seen some of the costumes from the Black, which is around the same period of time. But I don't know how great of an entry point is, especially if they're wanting to watch more modern Kamen Rider. It's really not in line with it. But if you're a Toku fan, I don't know how you could go wrong with this one.
Yeah. No, I mean, so two things stand out to me about this film almost immediately. It's got the 80s feel. As I said, it was released in 2011, like on pay-per-view in Japan, but this thing was made in 1993.
Is that true?
Right? Yeah. But it had to be released some other way. But yeah, in 2011, it was like re-released or It
had to be re-released because this
entire story.
Yeah, it had to have been re-released or something.
Exactly, because it definitely has that 80s feel. That's the first thing I noticed, and the second thing is the lack of dialogue. I don't feel that it has that ADHD element as far as the storyline is concerned. But
it's
at
not
times,
the storyline. It's more of the visuals and like one moment you're a man walking to a strange child on a bridge. You're looking at a clock, and then suddenly there's a nature montage, and then it's like, then we're back at the bridge, and then we're going on an adventure where a dad appears out of nowhere. It's just like it's just chaos.
It's fast paced, to be sure. And honestly, yeah, there's just not much dialogue. It feels like a silent film sometimes, and I actually love that about it because I think this still does have a driving narrative despite that lack of dialogue. I think it's relatively easy to follow throughout because it's just a simple story. But that 80s feel that I mentioned, it begins with that melody, which, as Neely pointed out as I was watching it a couple nights ago, and she was kind of just listening, she said it sounds to her like Stranger Things. And I think there are some similarities you could draw between the most recent season, especially, and ZO. The effects here are definitely late 80s, early 90s, but in that classic B-movie type of way. But if B-movie type of way is done to the best of its ability and effort, obviously, to me at least, I see a whole lot of craft that was put into the miniature work, the costumes, the stop motion animation, the limited CG. Were you as impressed as the effects as I was?
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing. It's really an impressive feat.
I figured there's not, this couldn't have had too huge a budget, and yet this thing is trying outlandish stuff, right? Like stuff that it should never try to do. It's at least trying and making it look somewhat good.
Yes, exactly. It's that budget definitely was minimal. And even some of the Kamen Rider Black stuff from this era, it's the vibe there is very similar to here. It's very darkly designed. Kamen Rider in general leans a lot more in horror than what you and me are kind of used to with Godzilla and Ultraman. And so they've really leaned at those horror aspects, especially at this time period, even more so than they used to. Which is, you could see it here. I mean, this takes it up to 11 though, which is why I don't know if it's a great point to show people, but I don't know if their expectations will be in line because we get really cool things. I think people's expectations will be more in line with two of my disappointments in this movie. Actually, we see the Batman looking villain, right? It's this bat thing. It doesn't look as good as some of the other stuff. It's a little hokey. It is a little scary, kind of, as well. And then we also have like our main villain. He looks really awesome, but he can't move in the suit, which is why he kind of fights with the lasers coming from his chest, right? Mm-hmm. But when you see something like the Show Stealer here, which is this Spider-Woman thing, it's like completely terrifying. It has that split bottom jaw, but it's got like that kind of like a weird beauty from the nose up as well. That human element that really elevates that body horror of it. And then it's not this anthropomorphic spider, really, because the nice surprise here is it actually has spider legs, which was like you expect it to be this person in a suit, and then you see the whole thing, and you're like, "Oh, this is cool!" And then they use stop motion, and it adds to that surreal nature of this monster. Like it's so great. Like this, I've seen a clip of this thing before or pictures of it, and I wanted to see this because of just that, and it definitely didn't disappoint. Because you have to love the creativity that goes into all the designs here. Even the bat one, even if I'm not a big fan of it, there is something really fun about it and dark, but I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got 3 to 4 uniquely designed monsters here, and I'm curious again, Alex, because you would know better than me. Do you know if any of these monsters are familiar in the Kamen Rider universe?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So they are in a way. So the first one. So here's the first 2 episodes of Kamen Rider ever.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In the original series, the first episode is The Mysterious Spider-Man.
Okay.
And the next episode is The Terrifying Batman. Spider-Man and Batman.
It's amazing.
First 2 episodes. And so, yes, these are definitely choices to kind of pull from the original series, because these 2 do make appearances in some of the other shows, because those themes are kind of iconic for Kamen Rider.
Yeah. So I think we've got Neo Life Form and its red evolution. We've got Bat Hand Eyes, Spider Queen, and Slime Child. Those probably aren't their technical names, but you know exactly who I'm talking about as I mention each one of those.
I love Slime Child.
I'm not sure who my first personal favorite is between these, but I do wonder if Guillermo del Toro had watched this film before creating Pan's Labyrinth with the hand eyes. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's the best part. That's the best part of Batman.
I thought I thought the same thing when I saw it. I was like, is this where Guillermo got it? He is a big Japanese tokusatsu fan, especially Ultraman. So I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm sure he had seen it. I'm sure he's seen it.
Oh yeah. I don't doubt it, actually.
There's no doubt.
And
there's
Eric,
no doubt he's seen this before creating Pan's Labyrinth.
That's right. He saw this and immediately created Pan's Labyrinth.
This was you heard it here, folks. This was the inspiration for Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh man! So Eric, I actually got onto the wiki here.
Yeah,
and it is Batman and Spider Woman.
Yes.
So just Marvel or Marvel and DC superheroes.
I love it. Well, you know, to me, Alex, one of the things I also appreciated about these films is, you know, make fun of me all you want about not being able to handle 3-hour Avatar films.
Yes.
But I think the short runtime here makes these films unique. And for what we have, I think they tell a compelling, though albeit simple, story. One of the threads that runs through this one is how the Doctor is trying to create a creature without emotion, because it's emotion that seems to be holding back humanity from perfection, right? At least in the eyes of Dr. Mochizuki. Now, I can't help but wonder if he's projecting that idea onto humanity, though, as it seems to me like he himself is hindered by his emotions. He's kind of that Dr. Frankenstein type of character, creating something far more complex than a simple emotionless monster that he sets out to build.
I like that. Yeah.
He builds Kamen Rider essentially, but what makes Kamen Rider successful is precisely his emotion and his desire and attachment to save Hiroshi. And with Neo Life Form evolves into having his own wants and desires and motives. So it gets out of its control in a similar way that Dr. Frankenstein's monster got out of control. And so it is a simple story, but there is that through line, and it never, to me, completely goes off the rails, despite being only 45 minutes. Does it have a ton of emotional depth? No. Does it have some? Yes. I think having that melody, that song throughout helps drive that emotional through line.
Yeah, I think so too. I that parallel between Dr. Frankenstein and Mochizuki is pretty interesting because it's kind of like you said, like even Frankenstein regrets his creation, right? And is eventually forced to create something else. And just like Frankenstein was forced to create the bride of Frankenstein or the bride of the monster. So I like that little parallel. I was wondering a lot during the movie, where are we going with this? Like, where is it going? But I think the payoff is worth it. Just to have the dad return, but also to kill him off. I'm glad that they went ahead and did that. And also,
it doesn't go full sentimental, right? It's like it has that pieces of it's a melancholy, right? It's bittersweet, which feels par for the course with this movie, right? There's that melody is that bittersweet, melancholic melody where yes, they are reunited, but it comes at a cost, which I thought was good.
Right, and music makes you calm, Eric. Music makes you calm.
Yeah, I will say a couple things I didn't love about this film. Well, the main thing is the climax. I think the final battle is great. I just think it ends a little abruptly, and I'm like, wait, did that just end?
Yeah. Did he just win?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he shoot some fog out of his stomach or whatever?
Yeah. The final defeat of the Neo Life Form, you're just kind of like, that happened so suddenly. So I wasn't a huge fan of that. And yeah, I think this film, I appreciate the 45 minutes. I think it probably, I know crazy of me to say, Alex, it could have added another 10 minutes and I would have been okay with it.
We're getting in James Cameron territory over here.
Yeah. Hey, I didn't say go over an hour now. I said add 10 minutes.
Okay.
Well, hey, Alex, before we get into our awards, MVM Plus this week is a very fun one with one of our producers, Christopher Clavero. We reviewed the Hobbit trilogy as a whole. And he tells me he gives a case for the Hobbit trilogy and taking them as standalone films and trying not to compare them to the original trilogy or the books, which I find hard to do, but he makes a great case for it. We also talk about a Kaiju Con that he is helping to put on in his home state of Arizona. And we also talk about our personal connections with Guillermo del Toro, to bring it back to him, his latest release, Pinocchio, on Netflix, which we both, myself and Chris, loved, but he had especially personal connections to that film, which
he was also
I love to hear.
A wooden boy.
Yeah, that's what it was. And so it was a solid episode of MVM Plus, I think, and you can find that over at patreon.com/MVM pod. Become a bargain basement. You can access that episode and our entire backlog for $2. $2 a month, Alex.
Ooh.
I call that a bargain.
That's right.
For the bargain basement.
And that's a deal that's all year, not just Black Friday, just so you know.
Oh, yeah. New Year special, Alex, for 2023.
All year.
All year. We're releasing MEM Plus for $2 a month. Let's get into our staple awards. Compelling character. Who do you got?
I had bad guy. Also known as our Neo life form. Also known as, I think his name was Neonoid, right? And then he turns into Doris, or I don't Doris.
Doris?
D-O-R-A-S.
I have an aunt Doris.
But yeah, he's our Neo life form. I mean, we got a few, but he's our big bad. I really like the way that when he's just really intriguing, especially early on when he's getting his limbs removed and then he immediately replaces them with metal. That was cool. And then he comes back later and he's like regenerated, I guess. Some of his stuff's like a little odd, like his life cycle and all that. It's a little strange. I feel like not everything's quite explained for him, but he just feels like a Terminator type character that just seems unstoppable. Again, my only gripe with him is that he just can't move in that suit, even though it looks awesome. And then his evolution. He's got a little Pokemon evolution where he just changes colors, really. But I liked him. What about you, Eric?
Oh, yeah. So mine was the grandpa who ends up taking care of the boy, right?
Yes.
Their relationship, you know what it reminded me of, Alex? First of all, the grandpa just has an amazing wardrobe, right? It stands out in this film. That's really serious. The grandpa, I can't take him seriously, right? Because of what he wears. He reminds me, his relationship with his grandson reminds me of the relationship.
Schindler's List.
Oh, close. All Monsters Attack.
Okay. Yeah, that one, yeah.
All Monsters Attack. Ichiro and his neighbor, right? There's just something there. It's just the slight camaraderie that they have, like the eccentric nature of the grandpa. It just reminds me a little bit of that neighbor figure in All Monsters Attack. Which, what are your favorites, Alex? I know, but
I like that relationship.
Schindler's List, All Monsters Attack. Both of those, really. Both of those are great. They just remind me of the grandpa.
The cool thing about this movie and All Monsters Attack is this is shorter than All Monsters Attack and way better.
Most memorable line award. What'd you have?
My dad says music makes people calm. Has this man never heard of Metallica?
A Metallica cover of that melody would actually be really cool.
You know, that
like
would
an
be pretty
electric
cool.
metal. That would
And
be
then you
pretty
could have it
dope.
played by the kid on Stranger Things. Go back to him, Eddie.
There you go. That would be cool. Yeah, there you go.
What about you?
So my most memorable line comes from Masaru Aso, who is Kamen Rider here. He takes the boy, and they're on the bridge, right? And it's this interesting scene. I think I know what it's going for here, but he says this to the boy. Everyone is trying to fill their lives full of love. You can't destroy that. And they're like looking out over the bridge at the city. And it reminds me of this scene in this book, How Do You Live, which is this Japanese book that is kind of like a Huckleberry Finn, To Kill a Mockingbird style book that Japanese school children read in Japan. How Do You Live? Miyazaki, actually, Alex, in 2023 here, has a movie coming out. He says it's his final movie, but he said that about the last three. But How Do You Live? He's actually created a film based off this book. I heard about that connection, and so I read the book maybe last year. And there's a scene in that book where the main character and his uncle figure are looking out over the city and considering the ramifications and like kind of their connection to people and how the people don't even realize that they're looking down at them, and just considering how big the world is and how vast it is. And that's what the scene reminds me of, because that's what I think it's trying to go for, because they're on that bridge, they're kind of looking out at the city, and Aso says that line, everyone's trying to fill their lives full of love. You can't destroy that. I just thought it was interesting. I'm a sucker for those existential type of lines anyway, so I had to go with that one.
I do. Do you think that moment was inspired by that book?
I would be surprised if the writers had not read that book. Okay. Actually, based off what I've heard, it seems like it's that popular in Japan. So I would not be surprised.
Would you say this is a faithful adaptation of that book?
It's a better adaptation of Schindler's List than How Do You Live? So. That's not completely true. It's probably a better adaptation of How Do You Live, if I'm being serious. Except for Kamen Rider tries to save people.
So does Schindler's List.
Yeah, so does Schindler, right?
All right, let's move on.
I can't believe the acting award. Alex, what'd you have for can't believe that acting?
I gave it to the Slime Boy.
Slime Child.
This thing was creepy. I couldn't tell half the time whether it was actually some small child putting their face in this little thing or some weird animatronic thing because of the way it moved at times.
I have no idea.
Not animatronic, but like puppet. And so it gets my award for being a nice little creepy mirror-like prop because it just looks like it's a mirror with slime on it. And it's pretty cool. So
I love the thought of like a kid actually like they had like a layer of slime like stretched thin. And the kid sticks his face up and starts like talking.
Yeah, exactly. That kid is
running out of breath because he can't breathe.
And that's why he got my award, because of all those breathing issues he probably had, that poor slime child.
My can't believe the acting goes for Isao Sasaki, who played Dr. Mochizuki. Just because he had the most range in this film, honestly. He had to sell some more serious moments, but he also had some more sinister moments. So he had the most range overall. The acting's not really something I'm looking too closely at in this film, to be honest.
I would give him my laziest actor award for just sitting there all the time.
Yeah, he doesn't have to move much when he's trapped. What about your that's a good shot award?
I gave it to the spider death. She gets killed by Kamen Rider, and then she folds up like a spider, and it transitions into like the real spider, I guess, showing that it was kind of like this like weird dimension that they were fighting in, which was just a really cool moment. But that transition there was really neat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That's great.
Wait.
My award goes to the montage scene.
The one that I talked about?
The nature montage. I'm a sucker for montage scenes, but anytime you let an eagle soar within the montage scene, man, you sold me. You have sold
brought
me.
It next level.
And you have struck an emotional chord within me and added another minute to the film that you needed to add it. You sold me.
You just needed a sunset during all that.
Oh, it was great. All right, unique award, Alex. I have coolest creature award, and based off what you've been saying already, I think you might agree. I have Spider Woman.
Yes, it's a good pick.
Yeah,
definitely the coolest, and definitely the coolest between even this movie and the next one. Mine is the I Take Ritalin Now award, and that goes to this movie.
it does. This is one of those movies that does push probably 80 minutes of content into 45
Yeah,
minutes.
well, it honestly, and it's, again, the final battle is like very by the books, but it's that before that, it is just like, it reminded me, not quite, but it did remind me for some reason of, what is it? The black and white Japanese movie that's just insane. Man, it's something Man, right?
Oh, yeah. What was that movie that we watched?
We watched it in its sequel.
The Metal Man?
Yeah, it's got the metal. It's got the guy. Oh, Metal Man.
What was that movie called?
Japanese movie.
Metal Man.
Oh, Tetsuo, the Iron Man.
Tetsuo, the Iron Man. Yeah. No, I made that connection too. I think we reviewed that on another podcast.
Yes.
And I think when I watched Tetsuo, I even made that connection to Kamen Rider ZO because there is that in here. Yeah. Yeah, because I had seen this. This is my second time watching it.
Yeah. I don't know why I made that connection. I mean, I know why. But it's interesting that we both actually made that connection. So,
yeah. And I think it's valid. I do. I think there's something valid there in the type of filmmaking. This is a little bit darker than what you might be expecting, right? Mm-hmm. There's definitely a strong horror element throughout. So, yeah, I think that's a valid connection. So let's get into our final thoughts and tiered rating. I'll go ahead and tell you, Alex, I think I'll start. This is an upper tier Gamera film for me. Probably doesn't quite reach that Godzilla tier film. I'm probably looking for something feature length, though not over long. Maybe 80 minutes, maybe.
If it's longer than a children's length movie from the 30s, it's not really fitting for Eric.
Apparently. No, honestly though, you can give me Avatar grief all you want, Alex, but no, I think this movie could have been stretched out a little bit. That just would have helped with that emotional undercurrent, which I thought was still there. It did remarkable things for 45 minutes, but it could have been fleshed out more for sure. I think the origins of Kamen Rider and the Kamen Rider lore also could have been added because, as you said at the beginning, this may or may not be a good introduction to Kamen Rider. It's got certainly elements, and it might intrigue you to watch more, but it may not give you everything that you need to get started with Kamen Rider. With that said, though, I can obviously see the craft that went into this thing, and I love the attention to detail and the ambition that we see here. There's not a whole lot of movies that with this limited of a budget that would be this ambitious and make it work. But Kamen Rider ZO does it. And they do it in ways through their sets, through their creature design, through just very creative set pieces. They make it work. So hats off to this entire team that put this film together because I was impressed, not just the first time, but now watching it a second time. So yeah, it's on that cusp of a Godzilla tier, but it can't quite get there for me just because of a couple of limitations that it has.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're right. I'm right there with you. This is definitely a strong Gamera tier for me, but it is ultimately held back a little bit by its narrative. I didn't really feel much of an emotional connection during the movie, but it definitely is a fun showcase for effects. And they're so good that it really does carry a lot of the movie, but it's also, really well crafted. Like, this isn't a sloppily put together movie. It is made very well with high production values and just a lot of really cool stuff going on. And you know what we needed, Eric? We just need a little more time with Kamen Rider on his bike. That thing. That's one thing that this film really didn't really lean into, is that the bike is almost like a character. for Kamen Rider, and then it's just not here at all. But it's 45 minutes. You got to pick and choose your battles. I get it, but we are just missing a few elements to keep this from a Godzilla tier. But again, I would recommend it to anyone that is interested in toku, but also with a bit of an asterisk if they're interested in Kamen Rider, to let them know this is maybe not quite what you're going to get when you watch the show.
Nice. Yep. Makes sense to me. Next week, Alex, we have Kamen Rider J. Will it be a piece of nice filet, or will it overextend its stay? It's going to be tough to overextend its stay because it's also 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to extend its stay when it's so brief. There's hardly a delay. But if you go on YouTube, you can watch it and not even have to pay.
It's for free.
It's for free. It's also at $2.40 pay.
Oh, man. Well, Alex, this episode is like almost 40 minutes now, so we better wrap up.
Yeah, we don't want to overdo. We don't want to overshadow the film. That would be embarrassing. That would just for the movie, not us, for the movie.
As always, thank you for listening to Monsters vs. Men. You can leave us feedback on this episode at mvmpod.com or email us at mvmpod@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. You can also follow us and message us on Twitter and Instagram at mvm_pod. Become a bargain basemite at patreon.com/MVMpod. We've got that 2023 special we just talked about earlier, and receive weekly bonus content, including special reviews, interviews, and host chats. And if you can't join at this time, a review or a share definitely helps. Monsters vs. Men is produced by Alex Cornett. Executive producers are Kevin Alexander, Faye Basier, Christopher Clavero, John Freeman, and Michael Herndon. Special thanks to our wives, Rock Band for PlayStation 3, which forms Cell Block B, Louis Loops, Senior Honda, Drew the Collector, our Instagram connector, and you, the listener, for listening. Until next time, don't...
When the bad guy tries to bite you with his chest, don't punch him there. It just try to stay alive.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
We've got Bat Hand Eyes, Spider Queen, and Slime Child. Those probably aren't their technical names, but you know exactly who I'm talking about as I mention each one of those.
I love Slime Child.